the approval of the minutes of the meeting of the May 17th, 2023 meeting. I have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for May 17th, 2023.
And I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Ready for the question? All in favor, let it known by saying aye. You said what?
Do we need to recognize the alternate member who's voting, or are all of us voting?
Yes.
Aye, then.
Aye.
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 Oppose? Ayes have it, motion carried. Subdivision and land development. A, primary final lot add-on and land development for 1061 Manheim Pike, Lancaster, PA, Habitat for Humanity, Restore.
Mr. Chairman, this project went through, or went before the Planning Commission at the beginning of this year for the preliminary plan waiver request, and the request was granted. So, and right now before us, so we have a preliminary final land development plan for a Planning Commission action, and I would like to hear from the consultant.
Good evening. I'm Bill Swernick with David Miller Associates. I'm here for your consideration of the plan. I can go through any of the comments that are on the plan, or I have a hard copy of the drawing that we can look at if there's questions relative to that. We have received the comments and would like to acknowledge that we'll address those outstanding conditions of approval or comments as conditions of approval. The project is located on the north side of Manheim Pike, east of McKinley Avenue. I think we went through this back at the beginning of the year, as Mandalia had said. It is located in both the city and Manheim Township. There will be a, if you could go to the plan with the building on it, there you go. It will be a structure that spans both municipality, the municipal line. There is a right-in entrance off of the Manheim Pike within the Manheim Township portion of the property, and a full driveway proposed on McKinley Avenue. There will be public sewer and water provided. We are proposing to reconstruct the condition of McKinley Avenue as part of the project, working cooperatively with the city on that. There will be curb and sidewalk along the frontage on the Manheim Pike and along McKinley Avenue on the east side of McKinley Avenue. On the west side, because of the condition there, it's going to be essentially matching the existing edge of pavement or pavement that's on that side. We are also proposing a fairly extensive planting plan. We had met with the Shade Tree Commission. Significant number of shade trees proposed along McKinley Avenue and other plants within the development of the site. There will be a stormwater, I'll refer to it as a managed release basin. It's going to be a series of pipes at the north end of the project to address the runoff from that portion of the site that's in the city. We are reducing the area of impervious on the site as a primary means of addressing stormwater management, but in addition to that, the city's requirements need to be met. We are not able to infiltrate on this site because of the existing soils conditions, so we are proposing to basically capture and release the water in a delaying that release of the water. There are some soil contamination, some contaminated soils on the site that will be addressed during construction with proper handling of those materials, but also in the post-development condition. The method for addressing that is essentially capping it with pavement providing a vapor barrier under the building and a passive ventilation system on the building, and also providing 2 foot of soil in those areas that are not otherwise paved or impervious. We have sidewalk, as I mentioned, along the entire frontage of McKinley and Manheim Pike, and we are proposing to construct crosswalks at the entrance off of Manheim Pike and at the McKinley intersection. And there will be the driveway on McKinley Avenue will be established as a curb apron versus a curb cut. So they'll be driving up onto an apron, and then there'll be tactile warning strips for the pedestrians. There's bicycle parking proposed in both sides of the building, and the building is generally intended to be used for, as it was indicated in the introduction, the Restore store. So there'll be products brought here. Folks will donate products. They'll be for sale at this location, and then there'll be a retail sale of those products. We have loading docks on the north side of the building to accommodate the vehicular access for both box trucks and tractor trailers. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or concerns you have with the comments. Like I said, we are willing and will be in a position to address those comments, and would like your consideration for approval of the plan.
One question?
Yes,
What is the square footage of this,
33,000 square feet total,
okay?
and it does have a mezzanine. There is a
Mezzanine.
small portion of a second story portion of the building.
Okay. And do you see yourself or the Habitat Restore needing more room in the future? Because I just went to the Restore today. The other one, I feel like they're already growing out of that space.
I think, I can't really speak to that. I think that they have made provisions with this building to accommodate some growth, because it's something that,
It
I
is
think
very
there'll be a lot more efficiencies with this design that aren't available at the current location. So I think that is a way to address some of their challenges that they have at the existing facility. I think
Thank
that site seems to be quite congested. I think it has to do with the layout of the parking and what have you, which we have a improvement here. So
Right.
I got a question.
yes, sir.
When you were selecting your landscaping options, what ended up influencing your decisions there? Like, why did you select the plants you did?
I can tell you for the street trees and the shade trees, we were influenced pretty heavily by the city. They had specific goals in mind relative to the plant selection. A lot of the plants were chosen with discussions and input back and forth with the Shade Tree Commission and Cody as an urban forester on selecting plants that are, number one, we have a diversity of plants, but also plants that would survive in that urban environment.
Okay, because I appreciate how many natives I see, and I'm glad to see that. If I don't think, are the plant, either Mr. Smith or Mr. Cajo, the plant selections can be changed later after approval, correct?
It should go to the Shade Tree Commission again.
Okay, because the only input I have is just, I understand that not native plants don't always work in urbanized environments all the time, but the one that stuck out to me was the Norway spruce in the far north corner. Just whatever you can do to keep putting natives in it is appreciated.
That plant was selected because of its size and maturity, the opportunity that we have at that location to allow it to get to a more mature size, and the ability for it does thrive in that condition. So that was one of the reasons why we selected it, as opposed to, we do have other native evergreens on the site, but in that specific location, it was considered it's a larger tree in maturity, so it was selected for that position.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can you speak to what the plan is for the trash? I know they have slightly different needs than maybe a typical business, and I just couldn't locate it on the map.
So it's a very good question. You can see there's a rectangle that's kind of at the northeast corner of the building. There's four loading areas. One of them will be assigned to the trash. So the benefit of it being at that location is a vehicle could be parked in front of that in temporary condition. And then when the trash, not parked there, really, a vehicle could be placed there if they're waiting for the loading to occur. And then that would be the trash location, dumpster location.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One other question? What is the timeline for this?
The applicant is interested to start this immediately. Unfortunately, we are going to wait for a highway occupancy permit. That'll probably be the longest item. I've met with the Manheim Township Planning Commission. They have recommended to the commissioners that the plan be approved. The policy or the practice in Manheim Township is we need to address some of these administrative items before they'll actually consider it at the commissioners. So, and one of those is consideration by city, that they have also generally reached agreement with what's proposed. So once we address some of those administrative items, we'll go to the commissioners and they'll want to move forward right away.
Is there estimated time for, a window of time for start of the project and finish?
I anticipate it would probably start, given that we're going to wait for PennDOT, probably unfortunately the end of the summer, September, August, September, October timeframe. And then they need to be done by February and
Okay.
occupied by, available to occupy February, March.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't have any question, may I read you the condition of approval?
Yes.
Thank you. City staff recommend approving the preliminary final land development plan for 1061 Manheim Pike, subject to the following conditions. The final plan and related construction document must comply with all city codes and standards unless specifically modified or waived by the city. All easements agreements and developers agreement shall be submitted for review by the city and recorded as part of the final plan recordation. The developer shall submit a financial guarantee in accordance with the approved OOPC. The OOPC shall be updated and accepted by the city engineer. The developer shall address to the city's satisfaction all unsatisfied comments per the review letter dated June 2nd. Storm flows onto adjacent property shall not be created, increased, decreased, relocated, or otherwise altered without written notification of the adjacent property owners by the applicant. The developer shall secure approval from the adjacent municipality prior to plan recordation. Do you agree on these
Yes.
conditions?
On behalf of the applicant, I do acknowledge that we will agree to those conditions if established.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public? Hearing none. For the motion,
I make a motion to approve.
we have a motion on the floor.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Ready for the question? All in favor, let it known by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
B, introductory sketch plan presentation by RGS for Stadium Road 2 at 812 and 816 North Prince Street.
Mr. Chairman, the city received a sketch plan for this development as a Stadium Road second phase. The staff had an opportunity to review this project, and we sent our comment to the developer and his consultant. And we are here in front of us, the developer and his consultant, to present you or to, update you on that project.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name's Ben Lesher. I'm with Parcel B Development Company, and just wanted to give you a little intro to the project, and then I'll hand it off to Ben Morton. I'm assuming many of you are familiar with Stadium Row, but if not, you can see it here on the screen and in your packet. It's a 4-story, 140-unit apartment building completed in summer of 2021. So we would like to essentially expand this in what we're calling Stadium Row Phase 2, although it'll be sort of all thinking of it as all one project when it's completed. We're proposing a new structure with 95 units. We are going to convert the existing fitness center into apartment and build a new fitness center in the new structure. The new structure will be 5 stories. We'll have a first floor parking garage and also a cafe, small cafe on the southeast corner. You guys know the demand for housing in the city. We've seen that at Stadium Row, and particularly around smaller units. And so we're proposing more smaller units, similar unit styles as we have today, which are studios, junior 1-bedrooms, and 1-bedrooms. We do have a few 2-bedroom, 2-bath in the new structure, but those haven't been quite as popular as the smaller units. So yeah, just excited about this project and to bring some more housing to the city and new development to this area. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ben Morton. I'm a senior project manager at RGS Associates, and we'll walk you through the plans in a little bit more detail. So starting here with the existing conditions, a unique aspect of the site to consider is, and the site is made up of 2 properties now, which were subdivided as part of the original Stadium Road plan, but will be reconsolidated as part of this project. The only true public frontage that we have is on North Prince Street at the east side of the site. But then there are 2 private streets, Thomas Armstrong Boulevard and Stadium Drive to the southwest and south of the site respectively, that we do have access rights to, but are actually on other properties. I'll also just draw attention to another unique aspect is that just to the south of this rather long site is the stadium itself. And, this area is not following kind of the more typical block structure that we have in the city. So the building that is to remain, actually, if you could go back for just a moment, the building to remain highlighted, hopefully you can see a little better on your screens or in your packet, is a light orange color at the western end of the site. As Ben noted, it's 4 stories plus a small area for roof access with 104 apartments. And the east side of the site is an existing office building that is, tenants didn't wish to renew their lease, and they'll be vacating beginning of next year, and that building will be demolished along with some of the associated parking for that. Lastly, on this page, I'll just draw attention to the existing access drives. There are 2 on North Prince Street, one that serves shared parking areas for both buildings right now, and then another one on North Prince Street that is simply for a small parking area for the office building. And then there was a new access point constructed as part of the original Stadium Row to the west on Thomas Armstrong Boulevard. So looking at the proposed, the addition will be extending east with relatively the same width of building from Stadium Row out to Prince Street. The dark orange portions are the areas where we have enclosed interior spaces at grade levels. So at Prince Street itself, there's the small cafe that Ben mentioned, as well as a mailroom and a fire stair. And then at the middle of the building addition on its south face is the resident lobby, which will be oriented to serve both pedestrians walking along Stadium Drive, the sidewalk of which was previously improved to the streetscape standards as part of the earlier project. But there will also be access to that lobby for the covered parking spaces, which are in that medium orange, as well as the parking spaces that are on the exterior to the north. And then also note that when you get to the interface between the two buildings at ground level, there is a pass-through space from the north to another sidewalk connection to Stadium Drive. Above all of this on floors 2 through 5 are where the 95 new units will be located. And on floors 2 to 4, they'll be interconnected with the existing buildings so that they function as one, and the different lobbies between the two buildings could be used by all residents. In terms of reconfiguring access to the site for motor vehicles on North Prince Street, we're going to close the southernmost access drive, and we'll be shifting the northernmost drive somewhat south so that we can better align the new parking area with the existing parking to the west and provide a bit of buffer from the existing building to the north. We already had adequate site distance for the existing driveway, but this will improve it further for vehicles exiting onto Prince Street. In terms of, well, I guess related to the access drives, I'll take note that while streetscape improvements were made on North Prince Street before, we'll be revisiting those, both to address the changes in the access drives and restoring brick banding where needed. There'll be the completion of a crosswalk across North Prince Street at Clay and Stadium Drive. And then, since the prior project was approved under the earlier saldo, the number of street trees provided before was lower than the number required now, and we'll be rectifying that situation, I believe, for a total of 7 street trees, one of which in this diagram is shown on site, but in discussions with the urban forester, we understand we're going to get all 7 in the public right-of-way and maybe be seeking a modification to allow them to be closer together than is strictly allowed by the ordinance. In terms of parking, we will now have 201 physical spaces. Between the cafe use and the apartments, 206 spaces are required, but 5 of those are going to be addressed via the zoning ordinance's allowance for bicycle parking as an alternate due to the number of both interior and covered exterior spaces that we have. And we will be meeting the bike parking requirements as well, which is currently stands at a total of 41 spaces. Again, in mixed settings, both for sort of resident use, visitor use, as well as cafe users. Highlighted on this drawing in the northwest corner of the site in blue is the existing trash enclosure, which is somewhat oversized for the current use and will continue to serve for trash for the combined buildings. In terms of utilities, we're going to connect to the existing water meter that was serving the original Stadium Row, and we will utilize existing sanitary connections as well. Similar to the prior project you heard about, this site also has some existing soil contamination that precluded infiltration on the existing phase, and similar methods of capping and vapor barriers were used before and will be used on any newly disturbed areas of this project. But again, we can't go the infiltration route on stormwater management. So at this point, we're looking at a combination of harvesting roof water for use in toilets in all of the new apartments, coupled with a slow release system to be located beneath the parking lot. And then before opening up for questions, I'll just say from a process standpoint, we did receive approval of a special exception for the cafe last week. And what we're now on a parallel track with is a conceptual stormwater review, particularly because we're not going the standard route of infiltration. So we're going to be compiling how we think our combined approach will work and get sign off from the Stormwater Bureau to proceed with that. And again, in parallel, we'll be submitting to Traffic Commission to look at both the shift in the one access drive and the closure of the other. Once we get through that process, we'll be coming back with a preliminary final plan, as well as going to PennDOT for an HOP, both for some utility removals in the street, as well as for the changes to the driveways.
Question from the commission?
Yeah. So we're having an informational conversation, so I want to just sort of, this isn't even necessarily about this specific project. I want to use it as a discussion opportunity for us as a commission. You know, this building that's going to be demolished is not the best looking, nor is it historic. Like, there's no reason to really preserve it aside from the fact that buildings that already exist are cheaper to renovate and convert into things like affordable housing. So I'm just curious what we as a commission can do, potentially with the assistance of information from developers like Mr. Lesher, to develop a policy strategy that would preserve buildings for achieving affordable housing goals while also giving some benefit like additional stories or height or whatever. I don't know what you would need to make it worth it, but that's the gist of what's going through my head when I see the project. I don't want to hold up a project that's going to create housing just for a hypothetical conversation, but I do think it's something, especially while we're working on the comprehensive plan, that we look at. That's all I got. There's no need to even respond.
Tony, did you say that existing buildings are less expensive to like rehab into housing?
Generally speaking, yes. I do know there are exceptions to that.
I would tend to disagree, but fair enough. But sometimes it can be, but oftentimes in my experience, I haven't done a lot myself, but other developers I've worked for and others I've talked to, it often costs more. I like where you're going with this. I'm not trying to totally derail it, but another challenge is existing buildings aren't always sited in a way that allows for efficient layout for new structures too, and to really maximize the additional housing. I've seen some other communities that allow density bonuses and things for affordable housing. I just think it's difficult because every project kind of has its own economics. So it's kind of hard to say, sort of a blanket statement on what works or what doesn't. But
no, I agree. And I also agree that the building configuration in this case is not convenient at all. I guess when I say buildings are, just to clarify why I say buildings are cheaper, what I mean is, when we're in a system where there's a lack of roofs for people's heads. It might not be ideal or housing that is, I'll use the word desirable for people to rent, but it is additional roofs that we can maybe provide, even if it's just for a set period of time. Saying like, okay, density bonus and this structure stays for an additional 20 years, after which maybe just typical zoning applies and you can demolish it. But yeah, I'm just thinking outside the box a little bit.
Great.
Thank you.
Can people enter and exit on Prince Street? Or is it one-way flow through that parking lot?
It's two-way,
Two-way, okay.
yes.
Are you doing any traffic studies or anything, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We've already done traffic counts and had some coordination with the city engineer as to what they're looking for that.
Perfect.
We're going to enter and exit through because you said one of them you're going to cut off, right?
Yes, so it's just, there's only one drive just north of the building addition that can be enter and exit there, and then you'll still also have the option to leave out Thomas Armstrong if you don't need to get onto Prince Street and are headed in other directions.
Okay.
I have a question out of curiosity. What are the approximate rents that you would expect for the units?
It's hard to say for sure this early out. I mean, I can tell you, I think it was in the newspaper recently. I think for like a one bedroom, I think we're around 16 to 1700 maybe in the existing one. So I would expect similar. Yeah.
Is the cafe on Prince Street, is that a requirement because of something the city is doing through zoning, or is this something that you wanted to do?
It is not a requirement. We actually had to get a special exception, zoning approval to allow it. It's something I wanted to do. I'll say staff generally has encouraging me on a variety of projects to do first floor commercial. To be frank, I'm always a little hesitant. I understand it from kind of an urban planning, activating the street perspective for sure. But right now there's an incredible demand for housing. There's also vacant retail space in our city, and just the economics and housing need. I tend to try to do more housing, but that's just my opinion.
Any further questions from the commission? Any questions from the public? Yes. Yes, yeah, you need to.
Hi, my name is David High. Mr. Lesher asked me if I was going to comment on anything tonight, and I said no. So, but when I look at the plan here, the overall length of the building, I'm wondering how that relates to the existing street block, the existing block length. It seems like a long building, and I'm sure we don't want people who don't live here to use it as a thoroughfare, but it seems like it's going to be a long walk to get around the building. So either which would probably lead people to driving. And I'm just curious if there's been any discussion of like maybe an open thoroughfare at the center of the building.
Sure. So I think there are a couple parts of that. One, I'll say in terms of access from a pedestrian standpoint, and it's maybe not super clear just the way the image is here, but in addition to the residential lobby that's on the addition on the south face of the building addition, The existing building does have doors from its elevator and stair core that address both the parking to the north as well as coming out to the courtyard space to the south. And that'll remain unchanged, giving people kind of direct access there on the side where the sidewalk exists that already has trees and the streetscape standards implemented to make that walk better. In addition, there will be a way to walk through between the buildings just at the east of the existing building. We're still working through exactly what that's going to look like, and it would be beneath about a 40-foot stretch of the new structure, but it's not an incredibly long pass-through. But that does provide sort of an added way to either walk along here and get back to the parking lot from the pedestrian network or the other way around. We did give some consideration to an access drive onto Stadium Drive, but, there are a couple issues there. One with how that is at times shut down for stadium activities, and just from a density standpoint, which is a real driver here in terms of both just meeting the overall housing demand, adding an additional route through there reduces the amount of parking that can be provided, as well as the number of units and the ability to tie this building in with the existing one, which is beneficial in terms of sharing building services. But we are certainly looking at that pedestrian connectivity issue, and we'll certainly speak to that more when we come back.
Quick question. Where exactly is the cafe going to be located? It's hard to tell from the sketch.
It's in the southeast corner. And Dolly, do you know where it's located? It's kind of that darker orange.
I see it. And is there parking allotted for?
Yeah, so it's been mentioned with the apartments and the cafe, we need 206 spaces. We have 201 automobile spaces, and then the 5 remaining are accounted for with bike parking. So we meet those zoning requirements through that.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add to David's comment. We did think about this. We got very similar comments from staff. I think my simple reaction is this is not, the baseball stadium is not a typical city block. And so to kind of cross to the south, you're going to have to go around the stadium either way. To go to the north, I'm not sure. Can't really go into Penn Stone or the tobacco warehouse, but yeah, definitely appreciate the comment.
Any other comments from the public? Commission?
Thank you. We have no further comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. C, inventory sketch plan presentation by ELA for 232 North Prince Street.
Mr. Chairman, the city staff has reviewed the sketch plan for this project, and we provided our comments to the consultant, and with us, Ms. Love can walk you through this project.
Hello again. So excited to be introing another project So this is located on 232 North Prince Street. It's the former Benjamin Roberts building, as it's most recently been known. Looking to do 130 new apartments. Again, similar reasons to what I mentioned for Stadium Row Phase 2, the demand for housing. And again, we're looking at a number of smaller units here. We're also in some of the historic structures that we're retaining, planning to retain, and I think Cheryl will probably get into that more. We are looking at some maybe more unique, larger units. We also are proposing some micro apartments or maybe really small kind of live-work units along Prince Street. Some of them may even have access right from Prince into the unit. One of the other features that I'm really excited about in this project is the interior courtyard or pocket park. And I think that'll be a really nice kind of green relief for residents. We also, similar to Stadium Road 2, although I think it'll be a little more effective here, is looking at a more innovative stormwater management system where we're harvesting the roof water and we'll be flushing toilets with that. So that's pretty exciting. And then, just lastly, have a nice opportunity to try to integrate some older structures in the history and character of Lancaster, but also make an impact with some new structures that we think will be compatible, but also push forward a little bit. We have been to the Historical Commission for the conceptual discussion and got generally good feedback there, and we'll plan to go back to them in the future. But with that, I'll hand it over to Cheryl.
Yes, good evening. As Ben spoke to this site, we are creating on the Prince Street side, it will be viewed as more of a 6-story building. On the Water Street side, it will be viewed more as a 7-story building, just by the change in grades between Prince Street being higher than Water Street. So that's the dynamics of the way the building lays out on the site itself. The total site is just over half an acre, and there's a very large amount of impervious on the site currently. Existing impervious is at 97.5% with just over 2.5 green space. So with that interior courtyard space, we are able to increase up to 13.5% or so of green space within this current property. With the grade change that we have between the streets running north-south, we are able to pull in parking. Although parking is not required, we're voluntarily providing some parking for the convenience of the residents, and that will be accessed through the little white connector there below where it's labeled on North Water Street on the graphic. So they would enter and exit there, and that parking would be at ground level, and then there would be units and floors above that that connect through and interconnect with the rest of the building. There's a stair tower where Mendali has the cursor currently. On the very north side of the building, there's another stair tower that brings folks down. Back to the parking area, just north of where the stair tower was, there will be an enclosed trash enclosure there. So that's how trash on this property will be handled. So that will be enclosed, and then that'll be wheeled out as needed for trash pickups. Some other unique features and opportunities that we have with that courtyard space is just north of the southern wing. There is a small area that's textured a little different there in the green. We're envisioning a dog run, a fenced-in dog run with like synthetic style turf in order to provide opportunities for a contained environment for the residents to provide some exercise for their pets within that space as well. in the vicinity of the large tree on the left end along Water Street of the courtyard space, we've actually been able to achieve some infiltration through our geotechnical testing on site. So we will have some stormwater infiltration through a rain garden type facility to be developed, although it will be small. We are still able to provide some infiltration. And then, as Ben noted, we will be rain harvesting the water from the roof systems, the roof structure, and that will be piped into, we're evaluating a size of an underground tank or cistern, which would be below grade of that parking area, kind of where the text labeling is on that plan, and or contained within some pipes that may run parallel to the inside edges of that courtyard space. In other words, perhaps some water storage along where roof water would be directed down into that piping system as well. So we're digging into the specifics of the detailed stormwater design currently, but all of those are the opportunities that we see for this project to be able to work to meet the regulations from the city stormwater standpoint. We are envisioning and anticipate all of our utilities to be connected to Water Street. We can connect our sewer line in there, water as well. We have received water, domestic, and fire capacities. Sewer capacities have been granted, and we are working our way through the sewer module process. Currently, we have that information as at both the city level and the county level getting processed, and then we will get that up to DEP as well. We have met with the urban forester on site. There are limited existing trees along Prince Street. He feels that we should be able to obtain the permission from the Shade Tree Commission to remove those 3 trees and the opportunity to provide 6 as shown. The reason for the space between the southern tree on Prince and the next tree up is existing stoop and step that comes out of the current doors on that historical portion of the building, and the walkability that we need to maintain in that vicinity, as well as some of the spacings with the decorative acorn style lights and the streetscape. Some of the lights are existing. So we've looked at where we can interspace the street trees within that zone. We will be able to provide a total of 6 street trees as what we're anticipating at this point. Total linear footage of both Prince Street and Water Street, we are at 328 feet. That would equate to 13 total street trees being required. Your urban forester agreed with us. There is just no opportunity along Water Street with the tight proximities there to be able to provide those trees. So we will certainly have to be looking to some fee in lieu of some trees, and we'll certainly process that through Shade Tree Commission as well. Again, we are somewhat early in our design, but we will be intending to bring this in and engineer and the remaining portions of this plan for a final plan submission in the weeks ahead. We look for the opportunity to bring the housing to this space. As Ben noted, 130 total units, and some of the micro units would be located somewhat from the building directly in front of the 3 street trees there along on Prince Street. So we're looking at the grades, we're looking at the building code requirements as to whether we can have a step from that front face of building. There are some grade changes between top of curb and where our building exits would be. We certainly want to have that opportunity to have, as Ben mentioned, some possible smaller live-work units there would be a unique feature. At zoning, we did receive a variance for some reduced sized parking. Although parking is not required, what we're proposing is somewhat less than the ordinance zoning sizes for parking spaces, and we also received some relief for our 4 micro units to be slightly less by 93 square feet from what the minimum 400 square foot unit space is for that type of unit. Bicycles, a total of 26 would be required, and we certainly intend to meet that requirement as well. The lower floor area, kind of in the U shape, or the right-hand side of that courtyard space, there are some residential amenities on that space as well. Currently have a glassed small fitness area there. There's a dog and dolly right down from right in front of the midpoint of the U, a little left. Sorry, right there. I should bring a laser pointer. But that zone is where we have some of our resident amenities. I believe there are some limited roof spaces as well for residents, but certainly all of the building pieces will be processed through your historical commission for those approvals and the sensitivities to the facade and the streetscape itself through that vicinity. Full streetscape improvements with the brick banding and all the normal amenities along Prince Street, and then we would have sidewalk replacements as well along the Water Street portions of that project. Did I get the highlights? We're certainly open to any questions.
I have a question. The square on the southeast side there, or the rectangle, excuse me, that's the portion of the building that's remaining,
Along Prince Street, you're exactly correct.
okay. And that's a 3-story and a 2-story section. Is that what I'm looking at here? Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, I think the dashed line outlines the portion that we're keeping. We don't have the separation. Some of that is 2 stories and some of that is actually 3.5, yeah.
And then the 1-story part to the north of that is being demolished.
That's right, and there's also some to the west behind the 3.5-story section. It's like a cement block warehouse.
Question, I'm curious to hear your rationale for adding parking when it's not required, and given that you're across the street from a parking garage.
It's a good question. I think we felt that space probably wasn't very conducive to more apartments, and because of the topography of the site, I mean, we need to build that structure anyway, so we decided to put some parking in there.
I hope you don't, but my question is, you said you were very excited about the Pocket Park. Walk me through it, tell me how people can access it, what's the game plan for it?
Cheryl, do you have anything else on it? In terms of, this is it? At this, I mean, you can see sort of the path. I don't know that's set in stone, so to speak, but the general idea is actually that this would become the main entry, probably from people that park in the Water Street garage.
Okay.
And so that they'd be walking through it. We'd like to have as many trees as possible. I'd like to do native plantings, probably not any kind of like mowed grass. And I should note, I forget if we mentioned or not, there's a rectangle along the garage, which is a proposed dog run. So pets are very popular at these kinds of places. We have each L of the building is a double loaded corridor. So you have apartments on either side, and you'll have apartments that have views into that courtyard.
Is it only accessible from the Water Street side? I do see a door that goes to the proposed amenity space, but
From the exterior, yeah, it's So where that square is, that's an entrance into the building on kind of the basement level, if you will. Just to the north of the entrance is a fitness center, and then there'll be a hallway that goes up to elevators that then bring you up to Prince Street. And above the fitness center and that entry, that's actually going to be like a terrace or patio. So you actually be able to sit there as a resident and look out over the courtyard.
Okay, because my general comments is I hope that you don't, obviously fences are required for the dog run, and thank you for providing that in the proposal, but I hope you don't fence it off to the public entirely. I also think that if it works out architecturally, there could be some sort of connection between that pass and if you may choose to put a commercial space in the older structure. Because like right across the street, another, I don't know, Cheryl Love, are you the one working on that project as well?
347 North Main.
Yeah. And will pedestrians still be able to walk through where the old rail line was?
We are north of that.
You're north
I
of
think
that.
he's talking about 202.
202, yes.
North Queen.
Oh, yes, that's ours as well. 202 North Queen, yes, that does provide a linkage through, and that was something that was very intentionally designed on that project because of the pedestrian traffic on that project that does flow through there. This is a somewhat different situation where this is in mid-block. It's currently not providing for, in its existing condition, that sort of opportunity as well. So I think they're two very different projects in what they're trying to achieve, but that's a fair question.
No, I just wanted to make sure I understood the pedestrian for that project correctly, because what I started to envision was the ability for people to pass through the structure to continue their walk diagonally across to the west side of town. I'm a huge fan of people being able to not have conventional square pathways of walking, and I think the measurements work out that a mid-block crossing could be viable at the location.
I should mention in response to your question that there is a walkway along the northern face of this that connects, although it's very narrow because of the way things set up, but on the north side, there is a sidewalk, stairs go down, and a sidewalk to the left. Now, that is something that we as a project team have continued to evaluate from a safety standpoint. There are residential units and their living spaces look out onto that immediately. We are looking at that more as a private space because of those units, and it's their living space, and it's what they look out to, because the building to the north, we will have the wall of that building itself just north of us there. But there is an opportunity that from a fire exit standpoint and just from everything that we do need, there is a connection there. But our team has looked at it to date as more of a opportunity as a somewhat private space, perhaps for those residents that live on that northern side of the building and don't have the opportunity to view the courtyard space as the other residents do.
Sure.
And
No, and
just to
I
note-
can understand that. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Just to note, like, you're one building down from Walnut Street. Like, it's not much farther to go up to Walnut Street. It's like,
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. You're exactly correct. Thank you for that comment. We're not showing that graphic here, but literally around and left on the corner, and you're at an actual juncture. So again, we are valuing that space from a resident living quality of life standpoint was what we were hoping to have that be private.
Sorry, one more question. Ben, or either of you, curious if you did consider any commercial use, first floor commercial on Prince Street for this project, since that's what you're doing now, I guess?
We thought about it, but that's where I think the micro apartments could be micro retail, for lack of a better word. Again, to the comments about retail and considering it, I wanted to do as much housing as possible. I get it mixed up. We are in CB1, I think, or CB. The one, you are allowed to have residential on the first floor in this zoning district.
Any other questions from the commission? Any public comment?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will look forward to seeing you with our final plan.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yep. Mhm. Four, Redevelopment Authority of the City of Lancaster, RACL, none. 5, a comprehensive plan update.
Good evening, Commission. It's
Good
nice to be out here looking at you. Douglas Smith, Chief Planner for the city. I just first want to say thank you to all the commission members and residents who came out to the May 24th Comprehensive Plan event. I wanted to let you know, if you haven't heard, that we think it was a really successful effort, and we had nearly 300 people there. The event ran smoothly, and we've gotten really good feedback about the proposed policies that are in the plan. So if you were not at the event and you haven't gotten one of these, I have a stack over on the table there. Please take one before you leave this evening. And you all have homework to do with this. So comprehensive plan comes before the Planning Commission for a recommendation to City Council for action. So that could be approve, deny, or conditionally approve if there are changes that are sought. So I just want to continue the conversation with you all, make sure that this is on your radar, and that you're getting ahead of some of the work that we have before us. This is a condensed version of the plan, essentially. It's mainly the policy that will be in the plan. It's missing some of the narrative and other, glue that sort of holds the document together and makes it, gives it more context. So for instance, a letter from the mayor to the community announcing the plan, more formal table of contents. There will be an implementation chapter. There are some other things that aren't in here at the moment, but we are hard at work on those other pieces. And we're aiming to have those before you in July. So the schedule going forward is that once we have a draft document in July, discussions would begin with the Planning Commission in hopefully July and August. We'd like to schedule more than one session, maybe several sessions with you all to really walk you through the plan and allow you to ask questions. And then this would be the forum that we would be recommending city residents engage in order to provide their comments on the plan and be a part of the discussions. So we will not be doing extensive engagement or discussions at other locations. We're really going to be asking residents to come here. And the primary reason for that is so that you all can hear those comments firsthand. You'll be making the recommendation to City Council. So we want you to hear from anyone who wants to offer comments. Right now, there is a project open on Engage Lancaster. For those of you who aren't familiar, that is a virtual engagement platform that we have through the city, and you can comment on basically everything that's in this plan. You can add comments to Engage Lancaster. So we are continuing to collect community feedback as we're drafting the remainder of the plan. And the last thing I'll say about the process is we would like to schedule open houses prior to the Planning Commission meeting. I'm still working out the timing and logistics for this, But the idea is that for some amount of time prior to the Planning Commission beginning its formal meeting, we would like to use this City Hall gallery space behind you in the hallway and have some of our materials set up there so that residents can come prior to the meeting if they'd like learn a bit more about what's in the plan, and then they can sit and hear the discussion and ask you all questions. So that's the game plan at the moment. Do you have any questions for me, or I can also take questions from the public if anyone's interested.
The only question I have is for the sake of the people who might come to our meetings to comment on the comprehensive plan, could we maybe potentially change our public participation section to be at the beginning and could include anything that's not on the agenda essentially? So like comprehensive plan or other community concerns, to save them time not having to sit through if we have a lot of projects going on.
Sure, Mr. Cajo and I can definitely discuss that possibility. The way that typically runs in other meetings is you have to schedule time ahead of time if you would like to make comments, and the reason for that generally is that there's business on the agenda that we have to get to, and we want to be intentional about who speaks. So if someone has a matter that they want to speak to, and typically those are related to matters that are on the agenda. When you speak, this is how City Council also runs these sorts of things. So that would be a possibility. I can talk to Mr. Cajo about that. And bear in mind that you will have other business that will come up this summer. So these meetings may require a little bit more from us all, given that we have development that we need to act on and discuss, and that work doesn't stop for us to consider our comprehensive plan. So I think right now our hope is that the agendas remain reasonable enough in work volume that we can still have these discussions as a part of those meetings. If for some reason we have a very heavy meeting agenda, then we may have to look at a special session for some of our work. So we'll keep you informed as that progresses, and we'll try to monitor the amount that we have on the agendas. Sure. Well, with that said, I'm very excited to embark on this process with you all, and it's definitely a historic moment since it's been 30 years since we've done this. So we are recruiting for one more Planning Commission member, making that known here as well. We had a resignation due to other responsibilities, and we're hopeful that we can fill that seat sometime in the very near future. So, please send applicants my way. They can send me an email with their resume. They need to live in the city, and the member is an at-large position, so they can live anywhere. And also that transition could be available to an alternate on the commission as well. So that's a possibility, and then we would fill the alternate position afterwards. So do let me know, and thank you so much for all the work you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there any other business?
Mr. Polite, I don't have any other businesses.
No other business? Would there be any public comment? Yes. Let's come to Mike. Mm-hmm. Should be speaking to it. No.
Here we go. Okay. Thank you. My name is David High, and I am a resident of the city and a registered architect. I was not at the last Planning Commission meeting, but I did watch the recording of the presentation by ELA on behalf of Park City Mall's owners. I'm glad the city noted that the updated comprehensive plan during the presentation and recognizes the opportunity at this site. Our neighboring municipality, East Lampeter Township, has a similar opportunity in the addition of multifamily housing at Rockvale. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the proposed designs fail to fully seize the opportunity, and instead of creating a place, I believe the Rockvale proposal simply replaces commercial sprawl with multifamily sprawl. Given what is happening in East Lampeter Township, I hope the city is able to get ahead of a similar problem. There are 2 points which may be included in the forthcoming comprehensive plan, but I want to emphasize tonight. The first is the concept of connectivity in a street grid. In my opinion, this is a shortcoming of the Rockvale plan in that the apartments do not meaningfully connect to the existing retail buildings, and they serve parking lots instead of walkable streets. The second is Park City's proximity to the city's largest park. Despite being a mere quarter-mile from the park's nearest entrance, multifamily development near the Park City's southwest corner, which is what you discussed during the last meeting, would require a car to access Long's Park, in addition to having questionable quality of life issues. To compare that distance, it is the equivalent of walking from this room to the far corner of Musser Park. I acknowledge that I don't have a full understanding of the site, and I realize that the mall's most successful anchor tenant is closest to the existing pedestrian access to the park at the northeast corner of the site. However, this existing connection to Long's Park seems to be a natural place to begin the process of placemaking. It's my hope that the next iteration of Park City serves to show that when done properly, sprawl repair in Lancaster City and County is about more than density. It can actually improve the quality of life for those who live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none. Have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I second that motion.
You have a motion and a second on the floor for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.